This is the Stewart Warner 801B, 1928. It's a nice metal cabinet with the crinkle paint. This is a AC powered set. TRF, of course. Pretty much only RCA made super heterodyne sets in the 20s. I think their patent expired. I think it expired in 1930, and after that, everyone else could make super het sets. So pretty much everything except RCA from the 20s is TRF, which this is. Got our power switch, volume control, tuning knob, which is rather stiff. Have to see if we can do something about that. So the lid is, I actually like the case on this. Kind of like a, feels like you're opening like a candy tin or something. Let's take the lid off. Take a look at the inside. Yeah, look at the inside there. Got our AD rectifier here, our two output tubes here, which are supposed to be 112A. Come back to that in a minute. Our type 27 tubes for amplifiers, and the type 27 detector tube. Now back to these over here. These are supposed to be 112A tubes, and if we look at this one, that's in fact what it is. 112A. Songbird, it looks like. If we look at this one, that one's a 71A. Now, I know that you can use a 71A in place of a 112A. They are kind of interchangeable. However, this is a push-pull output circuit, and you're supposed to use balanced tubes here. You're supposed to get tubes that have two tubes that have the same amount of gain, so that on both the push and the pull of the output, you get the same. You get equal amounts of push and pull. It's not like you don't want to have more gain on this tube than this tube, or vice versa, because then you don't get quality output. So using two separate tubes for here, unless they did match these, I'm not sure how that would work. But it's kind of interesting. We'll have to see how this works. This is probably an output transformer. I looked at the schematic. This is for selecting what type of antenna you have. There's an interesting feature about this too. We'll get back to that later. Why don't you take a look at the schematic. Got our gang tuning capacitor here. And this is different than the Spartan and different than RCA's too. No, it's the same as RCA's. This is the same kind of thing that RCA used, where you have all the capacitors on a single shaft, which is different than what we saw on the Spartan radio, where there were 4 different capacitors all joined together by one dial cord. This is pretty much what RCA used, including this big wheel here with the dial gauge on. If I can turn this up. The dial gauge is on this big drum that rotates through the window in the front here. This is definitely going to have to be cleaned up. It looks like down in there, there's springs on there, so maybe you can adjust the tension on it. We'll have to see. And of course over here is our the transformer and filter capacitors. So probably what I'm going to do is take these 2 bolts off to take this off, and also, if you look at this, down here is one, and there's also some on the sides, some bolts, so probably take those out and see if I can just lift this whole tin off. One more interesting thing, if you look down in the front, down in there, you'll see there's a fuse. That's kind of interesting. Usually radios this old don't have fuses in them. And it looks like it's a 2-position fuse, so perhaps that's how you select the voltage. Like one side would be, if you put it in one side, maybe that's for 110 volt. If you put it in the other side, that might be for 130 volts or something, or 110. So we'll have to take a look at that. But for now, let's take the case apart and get a closer look at this. after I got the cabinet off, I was able to take these two plates off that go around the behind here, go around the knobs there. Took those off, and then I took the bolts out at the bottom, and then I was able to kind of rock it forward enough to get it past the front of the shafts. I had to take these off too, to get it past the front of the shafts and then lift it off. And I took the cover off here, and this seems to be a terminal strip with some resistors on it. Also, I fixed the tuning capacitor. So we can get it on the problem area down in there. There were two nuts on the end of these shafts here. There's one there and one on the other side. Those shafts are on these nuts, and these have a spring on them to keep tension on this plate to give it some resistance. I tried loosening them, and that didn't make a difference. And it turned out it was another case of pot metal warping or expansion or whatever. This drum here on the back of the wheel had expanded in to be and was squashing against the nuts, so that there was so much friction between this drum and the nuts that it was so stiff to turn. Well, those nuts apparently were just locking nuts. This metal bracket here is actually threaded, and the shafts screw through that, and I think the nuts were just on the other side to serve as like a lock. But these are needing to stay in place without those nuts. So either I'll have to find a skinnier nut to put on the inside here, or just leave it as is. Probably leave it as is. But now, when I turn the knob, it's nice and smooth all the way through. And I could adjust these more to give it more tension if I wanted to. These are actually slotted on the end, so you can just take a little screwdriver like this one and then go on the end here like that, and then adjust those nuts there. So with that fixed, I figured I would just go ahead and power this up. A lot of times the capacitors that these use in these blocks here are pretty stable. They don't usually short. Even if they do, this has a fuse on it, so I'm pretty safe there. I did put a ST type 80 in here just in case something drastic does happen. I don't sacrifice my nice globe 80 that came with it. So silver tone, looks like a date of March 18th of 33. I would focus on that, that would be appropriate. So if all goes well and this works, I'll probably put this nice globe tube back in here. Some of the tubes in here are pretty nice. Sylvania one here, Type 26, has a nice leaf logo on the top. And this one, Premier, this is actually an embossed logo. This is raised up. You can actually feel the letters on it. Pretty interesting. Not quite sure what happened there. Look, there's someone ground part of the base away. So, got our tubes in, got our high impedance speaker in the back there. This is going to require investigation for later. There's actually an extra plug here. First I figured this was like a series plug. 1920s houses didn't have much outlets, so if you're taking up an outlet with your radio, I figured maybe they give you like a plug in parallel with the radio, so that the radio didn't use up all your plugs. You could have an extra plug here, but I checked with the ohm meter, and this doesn't seem to be directly connected to the input plug, so I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. It's not on the schematic anywhere. Another potential thing that it could be is a connector for a dynamic speaker. So the speaker that this radio would usually use is the high impedance speaker in the back there. But I believe some radios had an option where if you wanted to use a dynamic speaker, which would have a field coil, they would provide power for the field coil. So this might be what that is. Once I get this powered up, I'll check it with the ohm meter and see whether it has AC or DC volts on it. I should use a voltmeter for that. See whether it has AC, DC volts on it and how much voltage it has. If it has higher DC voltage on it, I would assume that's what it's for. It's to provide power for a field coil. But I'll turn off the lights and we'll get this connected here. The power cord looks to be in pretty good shape yet. It's the original, but it's still pretty flexible. It's stiff in some areas, but it's not really not that bad at all. So I'll plug this in, turn it on, turn off the lights, and hopefully nothing blows up. So I've got it plugged in. This is not the appropriate dial light. I'll have to dig one up. Got a switch here. So let's see what happens. Oh, the dial light lit up, and the tubes are lighting up. Got some hum out of the speaker. Nothing out of there yet. Make sure all these tubes are actually lighting. That was not correct. Uh, 27 tube. Oh, maybe it is lighting. Got some microphonics there. Yeah, I guess it is lighting up. I don't seem to be getting anything though. I did check the fuse is good. These fuses is so hard to see if they're lit. Looks like they all are. Could also be the volume control is open. I didn't check for that. Let me turn the light back on. Seems like the signal feeds through. Not getting anything when I touch there though. Alright, let me get the voltmeter and probe some of these tube sockets and just get an idea of what voltage we have on here. I'll try this one first. That's better. So let's go from. Well, I'm just going to get a good ground connection here. $198. That should be appropriate. The signal is getting through from that, so I wonder why I'm not getting any. That sounds different. There was something. Barely hear it. Oh, it seems like I just heard oscillation there. Not sure if you can hear that or not coming out of the speaker. Something there, but it's very faint. Could be that these tubes are weak as well. Try wiggling a few more of them. Alright, I'm going to go through and clean these tube sockets and see what that does. Okay, the tube sockets have been cleaned. Let's see what we get this time. So I'm getting nothing. There's something. They have these antenna hookups backwards. That would be the problem. Have my antenna hooked up to the wrong wire.
No supo aprovechar las ocasiones. vibraciones generadas donde por momentos tuvo algunos empate también que sucedió a Mineros.
Look at the lack of selectivity there. I think this is worse than that Spartan. I can...
En el día de ayer la verdad
Look how wide of a stretch that station is received for.
mensajes.
You're listening to the NFL playoffs.
Senegal have asked for meetings with U.S. Embassy officials in those countries to formally complain.
Fan mobility delivered. Nazareth Pallet, Lehigh Valley's premier pallet company, and the Lehigh Valley International Airport. 11 non-stop destinations, one stop to the world. Drop back to the go-to, makes the shot, and now just puts it over to Brett, and now goes to the scores. There it is.
Coming up, all would like to write their own space.
Seems to work, but I think it could be a little bit better. Might experiment trying just a couple of different tubes in here, especially these globe ones. It actually doesn't sound, I mean, aside from being weak, it doesn't sound very distorted. I was kind of wondering if the vast difference in these tubes would give for distorted output, but it seems to be okay.
A reminder that at the end of divisional weekend, we'll select the AutoZone In the Zone Player of the Week, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in your zone with great value, offers, and free services that help your vehicle deliver its best performance. AutoZone has everything to get you what you need. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
Oh, there it is.
Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, Hubbard,
Then it will work, just clean the tube sockets basically, and of course I had to fix the prop metal issue here. There's like more, the 1920 radios seem to have more mechanical issues than electrical issues. Okay, let's do a channel sweep with these 26 tubes in, and then we'll try these other ones and see if it makes a difference.
De la tarde del Pacífico.
Let's swap these. That's odd. This one seems to be glowing brighter than these other two, even though they're both the same kind of tube. Maybe I should try swapping this one out. Well,
Este es el choque entre León y Toluca.
it seems worse now. Now this performance is probably perfectly acceptable for this radio. These TRF sets aren't really that strong performers. You would just be able to pick up the local stations in your town. I'm not sure if my light is going bad. These are not like the superhits where you can pick up all kinds of a variety of stations. These just don't have that kind of sensitivity. I'm just doing a little experiment to see what kind of sensitivity I can get out of this particular radio. I don't see much of a difference either way.
Fernando Uribe tratando de ganarle la espalda.
Okay, so these two tubes that I put in here now I found to be much stronger than the original ones. If I turn the volume up just a little bit more, it actually goes into oscillation because there's so much signal coming in, there's so much gain on these two tubes. But now, should be able to...
Open doors. It opens better doors.
That station wasn't even picked up before.
Influential CEOs, tech companies. Offer to 6597. The WP Carey School of Business.
The other station I think is out of Canada. They broadcast short radio shows late at night.
feels great because we finally have an opportunity to have. It doesn't matter. You watch it featuring way around the world.
You're looking good, America.
¿Dónde duele? ¿Dónde? Ahí. Venga, miedo.
Is donate millions to George.
Man runs the State Office of Women's Advancement and
Contacts and upcoming show info. Coast Insiders with Android System 4.0 and above, or iPhone. To Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from the 10th of July, 2002.
It's a merry melody. You were right about color. You were right about that. I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%.
Oh, they're ready to put the box back on. Didn't have to do a whole lot of work on this one, just play with the tubes a little bit. I got the Stewart Warner all finished. I replaced the antenna wire because there was a break in it. I got rid of some of the crackling that you might have noticed in the previous video. That was the antenna making and breaking connection. So let's do a channel sweep with this and should be done. Got our high impedance speaker hiding in the back there.
If people aren't interested in this subject, I can't imagine.
Start right at 100. This doesn't really have station markings on it. It goes from 100 to 0, and at the same time from, so it does say 550 there, but it doesn't go up to 16, well I guess these would only go up to like 1400. It says 550 there, but then it counts down, so it goes 550, then 450, and so on. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. So my light is lighting up. I can turn off the lights for a dramatic effect. Rest of my computer's on. Fix that. Okay. The dial light doesn't light the dial a whole lot. You can kind of see it in there.
Committee Ranking Member Democrat Adam Schiff voiced objections to the memo's release.
The rule in which this was being
It's like two stations riding over each other there.
College police, everybody helping us to make sure.
45, the S&P 500 index down 60. Sam Stovall is chief investor.
Republicans are quick to say this is not about the Russia investigation, but about manufacturing and selling armor-piercing bullets in violation of its allies.
what we're trying to do is ensure that our 7 députés de la coalition Avenir Québec ont voté contre l'immatriculation des armes à feu. Le député
That's French. Must be from Canada.
est le porte-parole en matière de sécurité publique. Il a voté contre le registre des armes à feu, et par la suite, il a accepté de se rallier. Para empezar.
Interesting that there's a glow on this tube, because that's only a 26. I don't know why that's glowing, but it's definitely glow on the outside of the tube, so it's not gassy. It must just be that much RF power coming in there. And I did put a 71A in here. Remember, there was a 71A and a 112, so I replaced the 112 with the 71A. There it is, the Stewart Warner 800, I think this is an 801B. And basically this needed no work except for cleaning up the tuning capacitor was sticking because of those nuts being squashed by the pot metal, but that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.